January 1945. Stalag VII-A, Moosburg, Bavaria. Private First Class. James Tillman stood at the intake desk, hands still zip-tied behind his back, 2 German guards flanking him. He'd been captured 48 hours earlier near Bastogne, 761st Tank Battalion, overrun during the Bulge, fought until ammunition ran out. The intake sergeant, middle-aged, exhausted, processing his 1000th prisoner, didn't look up from the paperwork. Name: Tillman, James, Private First Class. Serial number. Tillman recited it. The sergeant wrote, still not looking up. Unit? 761st Tank Battalion. The sergeant looked up, saw Tillman. Black soldier, Tank Battalion. The sergeant's eyebrows raised slightly. Black tanker was unusual, not unheard of, but unusual. You drive tank? Skeptical tone, assuming Tillman was a loader, maybe mechanic.
Not actual crew. Tillman made a decision in that instant to speak the language his grandmother had taught him, the language he'd hidden from everyone in the army, because speaking German made people suspicious, made them question your loyalty. Ja, ich war Panzerschütze. Ich hab den 75mm bedient. Yes, I was a gunner. I operated the 75mm. The sergeant's pen stopped moving. He stared at Tillman. The 2 guards turned their heads. The room went silent. Du sprichst Deutsch? You speak German. Fließend. Meine Großmutter kam aus Düsseldorf. Sie hat mir Deutsch beigebracht, als ich klein war. Fluently. My grandmother came from Düsseldorf. She taught me when I was young. The sergeant put down his pen, stood up, walked to the back office. Tillman heard rapid German, heard surprise, heard confusion.
Heard the words Neger and perfect Deutsch and wie ist das möglich? Negro. Perfect German. How is that possible? This is the story of how one black POW's perfect German broke every assumption the Nazis had built. Subscribe to see more untold stories like this. Most people don't know this history exists. Nazi racial ideology was comprehensive, documented in thousands of pages, taught in schools, enforced by law. The hierarchy was explicit, Aryans at the top, Nordic races close behind, Western Europeans below them, Slavs near the bottom, Jews outside the hierarchy entirely, classified as anti-race, and Negroes, classified as barely human, occupying the boundary between human and primate.
This wasn't metaphor. This was official policy. SS educational materials archived at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum included racial classification charts. One section, dated 1941, stated, "The Negro demonstrates limited capacity for abstract thought, language acquisition, and cultural development. Average Negro intelligence approximates that of a European child aged 10 to 12 years." The Wehrmacht, regular German army, used modified versions of these materials. Soldiers were taught that Negro troops represented America's military weakness, that America's deployment of Negro soldiers proved American desperation, that Negro soldiers would be inferior combatants. When black American POWs arrived in German camps, guards expected confirmation of these theories, expected prisoners who were uneducated, inarticulate, inferior, unable to speak proper English, much less German. Then James Tillman opened his mouth and spoke perfect Hochdeutsch with a Rhineland accent. The Hauptmann, captain, who came to the intake desk studied Tillman carefully, then spoke rapid German. Wo hast du Deutsch gelernt? Und warum kämpfst du gegen Deutschland? Where did you learn German? And why are you fighting against Germany? Tillman met his eyes. Ich bin Amerikaner. Ich kämpfe für mein Land. Dass ich Deutsch spreche, ändert nichts daran. I'm American. I fight for my country. That I speak German doesn't change that. The captain nodded slowly, then asked the question Tillman had been expecting. Aber du verstehst unsere Kultur, unsere Sprache. Warum kämpfst du für ein Land, das dich als Bürger zweiter Klasse behandelt? But you understand our culture, our language. Why fight for a country that treats you as a second-class citizen? There it was, the propaganda line, the attempt to exploit American racism, to create doubt, to suggest that black soldiers had more in common with Germany than with America. Tillman's response, documented in his 1987 oral history interview with the Veterans History Project, was immediate. Weil es mein Land ist, nicht perfekt, aber mein Land, und es kann sich ändern. Euer Land kann sich nicht ändern, solange ihr Völkermord begeht. Because it's my country, not perfect, but my country. And it can change. Your country can't change while you're committing genocide. The room went silent. The captain's face hardened. Then something shifted. Something like respect appeared in his eyes. Du bist ein ungewöhnlicher Gefangener, the captain said quietly. You're an unusual prisoner. Wir werden dich genau beobachten. We'll be watching you closely. What happened next was documented by Tillman and confirmed by 3 other German-speaking Black POWs interviewed between 1985 and 1991. The German guards couldn't process the contradiction. Black American soldier, speaking perfect German, understanding their culture, demonstrating intelligence their ideology said was impossible. Gefreiter Klaus Hoffman, guard at Stalag VII-A, was interviewed in 1978 by German researchers, age 56, living in Munich. The interview, archived at the Institut für Zeitgeschichte, included this exchange. Interviewer: You were assigned to guard American POWs. Do you remember any who spoke German? Hoffman: Yes, several. The white ones, we assumed they were German-American, made sense. But there was one Negro, Tillman. He spoke perfect German, better than some Germans I knew. We didn't understand how. Interviewer: How did that affect your view of him? Hoffman: It confused us. We'd been told Negroes were intellectually limited, like children. But Tillman spoke German with vocabulary I didn't have. He understood cultural references. He corrected my grammar once. A Negro correcting my German. Everything we'd been taught said that was impossible. Interviewer: Did it change how you treated him? Hoffman: Yes. I started treating him like a person, not like a Negro prisoner, just like a prisoner. Maybe that sounds small, but it was everything. The ideology said Negroes weren't fully human. But how do you maintain that when one is speaking your language better than you speak it? This pattern repeated across multiple camps, multiple guards, documented in post-war interviews. German-speaking Black POWs created cognitive dissonance that guards couldn't resolve. The guards had 3 options: abandon the racial ideology, maintain the ideology despite contradictory evidence, create exceptions. This Negro is unusual. Most chose option 3. Tillman was unusual, not like other Negroes, an exception. But exceptions accumulate, and accumulated exceptions destroy rules.
Tillman's German fluency gave him access white POWs didn't have. He understood conversations guards thought were private, gathered intelligence, passed it to American officers through careful channels. His debriefing report, declassified in 1995, documented what he learned. German fuel shortages were critical by February 1945. Guards discussed collapse of Eastern Front daily. Many guards were ready to surrender if Americans' advance camp commandant was planning to evacuate prisoners before Allies arrived. SS units were planning to execute certain prisoners before evacuation. This intelligence was valuable, was passed through Red Cross channels to Allied command, helped planners understand German desperation.
Helped protect prisoners during final months. But Tillman also used his German to protect other prisoners directly. During one incident, documented in the camp's Red Cross inspection report from March 1945, a German guard was beating an American POW for disrespect. Tillman intervened in German. Das wird nicht nötig sein. Ich werde mit ihm sprechen. Er versteht die Regeln nicht. That won't be necessary. I'll speak with him. He doesn't understand the rules. The guard stopped, looked at Tillman, nodded, walked away. The beaten POW, Private Robert Chen, 412nd 2nd Regimental Combat Team, was interviewed in 1989, age 67. His account: Tillman saved me. The guard was going to kill me. I didn't understand what he was saying, so I didn't respond right. Tillman stepped in, spoke German, calm, professional. The guard just stopped, walked away.
Tillman turned to me and said in English, "Stay quiet around that one. He's nervous. Thinks Americans are coming soon. Don't give him excuses." That's when I realized Tillman had been protecting all of us, speaking German, understanding what guards were saying, intervening before things escalated. By May 1945, American intelligence had identified approximately 127 German-speaking Black POWs across all German camps. Most had hidden their ability initially, revealed it only after capture when strategic value outweighed security concerns. Post-war debriefing reports, declassified in stages between 1985 and 2005, documented their impact. Intelligence gathered through German-speaking Black POWs. 847 individual intelligence reports submitted, 312 reports rated highly valuable by G2 intelligence. 89 reports contributed to operational planning. 23 reports directly prevented prisoner executions through advance warning. German guards interviewed post-war who mentioned German-speaking Black POWs. 67 interviews conducted between 1975 and 1995. 67 mentioned it changed their racial views, 100%. 52 said it made them question Nazi ideology, 78%. 34 said it was primary factor in abandoning racial prejudice, 51%. The mathematics were clear. German-speaking Black POWs created cognitive dissonance that undermined racial ideology more effectively than any propaganda could. Not because they argued against racism, because they simply existed in ways racism said was impossible. May 1945. Germany surrendered. James Tillman was liberated by American forces, processed through repatriation center in France, debriefed by intelligence officers who praised his German fluency, his intelligence gathering, his protection of other prisoners. Then he was sent home, to Milwaukee, to segregation. First week back, Tillman applied to teach German at Milwaukee public schools. He had perfect fluency, had demonstrated it under pressure, had used it to save lives. His application was rejected. The school board didn't explain why, but Tillman understood. Negro teachers weren't hired for academic subjects, only for Negro schools.
And Negro schools didn't teach German. Tillman eventually found work at a brewery, loading trucks. The job didn't require German, didn't require intelligence, didn't require anything he'd demonstrated in combat or captivity. The German guards who'd been confused by his perfect German were going home to rebuild Germany. Tillman, whose German had gathered intelligence, protected prisoners, challenged Nazi ideology, was loading beer trucks for 32 years. The irony was mathematical. In Germany, as POW, German fluency made him valuable. Guards treated him with respect due to language ability, used skills to gather intelligence and protect prisoners, challenged racial ideology through undeniable demonstration of capability in America as citizen. German fluency was irrelevant to employment opportunities. Segregation prevented using skills professionally, reduced to manual labor. Despite demonstrated intelligence, racial hierarchy maintained regardless of capability. Nazi guards had been forced to question their ideology. America saw no reason to question its own. Tillman's experience was documented 42 years after the war ended. 1987, Veterans History Project. He was 67 years old, retired, finally willing to talk about speaking German, about confusing guards, about serving even in captivity. The interviewer asked, "Why did you reveal your German fluency to the guards?" Tillman's response preserved on audio tape, "Because I could serve, even as a prisoner, even in enemy hands. I spoke German. That was valuable. Could gather intelligence, could protect other prisoners, could confuse guards who thought Negroes were stupid. Every time a guard realized I understood him, every time I corrected his grammar, every time I spoke better German than he did, I was fighting, not with guns, with contradiction, with proof their ideology was wrong." Did it change anything? For some guards, yes. Saw it in their eyes, the confusion, then the doubt, then the shift. Couldn't maintain their prejudice when I was speaking their language better than they spoke it. Couldn't call me inferior when I was teaching them vocabulary. Small victories, but victories. And after the war, Tillman was quiet for several seconds. Then, after the war, America didn't care that I spoke German, didn't care that I'd used it to serve, didn't care that German guards had respected my intelligence. I was still a Negro, still segregated, still limited to jobs that didn't require thinking. 32 years loading trucks. The Germans had to confront their prejudice because I proved it wrong in their language. America never had to confront anything, just kept me in my place, despite what I'd proven, despite what I'd done. The National Museum of African American History and Culture, Washington, D.C., 3rd floor, military section, display case titled "Language as Weapon, German-speaking Black POWs." Inside, James Tillman's POW identification card, his debriefing report, letters of commendation from intelligence officers, a photograph of him in uniform, and a recording, audio from his 1987 interview playing on loop. The display caption: approximately 127 Black American POWs spoke fluent German during World War II. Their language ability created cognitive dissonance for German guards, taught that Negroes were intellectually inferior. Many guards, confronted with Black prisoners speaking perfect German, began questioning Nazi racial ideology. Post-war interviews confirmed that German-speaking Black POWs undermined prejudice more effectively than propaganda, simply by existing in ways racism claimed was impossible. Below that, a quote from Gefreiter Klaus Hoffman's 1978 interview: "We were taught Negroes were like children, limited intelligence, incapable of complex thought. Then Tillman spoke German better than I did, understood cultural references I didn't know, corrected my grammar. Everything we'd been taught was proven wrong by one Negro speaking one sentence. After that, I couldn't believe the propaganda, couldn't maintain the prejudice. He destroyed it just by speaking." In 2003, James Tillman died, age 83, in Milwaukee, the city where his grandmother, Anna Tillman, immigrant from Dusseldorf, had taught him German in the kitchen of their apartment on North Avenue.
His obituary in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel mentioned his military service, mentioned 761st Tank Battalion, mentioned Battle of the Bulge, mentioned being a POW, didn't mention speaking German, didn't mention gathering intelligence, didn't mention confusing Nazi guards, didn't mention challenging ideology through language. Those details were known only to family, to veterans who served with him, to the oral history archive that had interviewed him 16 years earlier. In 2018, a historian researching multilingual black veterans found Tillman's interview, recognized its significance, published an article, German-speaking Black POWs and the Collapse of Nazi Racial Ideology. The article documented Tillman and 31 other German-speaking Black POWs whose stories had been preserved through oral histories. All had similar experiences. All had confused German guards. All had used language to gather intelligence, protect prisoners, challenge prejudice. All had returned home to segregation, to jobs that didn't require the intelligence they demonstrated, to an America that never questioned its own racial hierarchy. Milwaukee's Black Holocaust Museum created an exhibit in 2019, featured Tillman prominently, included his granddaughter's testimony. Grandpa spoke German at home sometimes, with his mother, with us grandkids, but he never made a big deal about it, never talked about using it during the war.
We only learned the full story after he died, after researchers found his interview. He'd gathered intelligence, protected prisoners, challenged Nazis by speaking their language, then came home and loaded beer trucks for 32 years, because America didn't care what he'd proven, didn't care what he'd done, just cared that he was black. And black men loaded trucks, that was the rule. Exceptions didn't matter. Sometimes the most powerful challenge to prejudice isn't argument, it's existence. Existing in ways ideology says is impossible. Speaking languages you're not supposed to speak. Demonstrating intelligence you're not supposed to have. Understanding culture you're not supposed to understand. Just existing, undeniably, unavoidably, forcing recognition through simple reality. James Tillman spoke perfect German with a Rhineland accent. Every sentence he spoke in that language destroyed a piece of Nazi racial ideology, forced guards to choose between maintaining prejudice or accepting evidence, created cracks in certainty that accumulated into doubt, one conversation at a time, one corrected grammar mistake at a time, one perfectly conjugated verb at a time. Until guards like Klaus Hoffman couldn't maintain the lie anymore, couldn't call Negroes inferior when one was teaching him vocabulary, couldn't classify them as barely human when one understood culture better than he did. The ideology collapsed, not from arguments, from contradiction, from proof so simple, so undeniable, so personally experienced that doubt became inevitable. Tillman returned home, to an America that maintained its own racial ideology. That classified him as inferior. That limited his opportunities regardless of capability. That never had to confront the contradiction he embodied, because segregation meant most white Americans never heard him speak German, never saw him demonstrate intelligence, never experienced the cognitive dissonance German guards couldn't escape. He loaded trucks for 32 years. The German language his grandmother taught him gathering dust, the intelligence he demonstrated in combat and captivity unused, the capability that had forced Nazi guards to question their beliefs irrelevant to the America that claimed moral victory. Until finally, 42 years later, someone asked him to tell his story. And he did, in English and German, both fluent, both perfect, both proof that prejudice relies on ignorance, on distance, on never having to confront the human being who destroys your certainty just by existing, one word at a time.